All right, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Enough to Keep Going podcast. This is episode 433, which should have been for the week of May 3rd. But as we normally record on a Sunday, if you are viewing this or noticing the timestamp, this is not a Sunday. This is Tuesday, May 5th. Whether you want to claim that we were all off on a May the 4th vacation and preparing, but really we are fathers, parents, spouses, employees, and sometimes life gets in the way or life occurs around us and we're forced to swim along. So that's what happened. That is why we were not here on Sunday, but we are here tonight, all three of us, which means, Tom Master, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
Good.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, and we'll be back to our regular schedule not this coming week, because as we just said, we are fathers and spouses, and which means this coming Sunday, the 10th of May in North America and United States, it is Mother's Day, and so we are taking a Mother's Day hiatus to spend time with families. So the adjusted schedule continues to roll out, but we are glad to be here. We've got plenty to talk about tonight, and keeping us on track and live online is Game Logic. Game, how are you doing tonight? Are you testing out your new microphone muting?
No. I was just hesitating to answer. There's more Xbox scuttlebutt today, which fortunately is not on our agenda. It may wind up bearing mention, but I was tempted to say that my day was not great because there's just, I don't know. Good. I'm fine.
Well, we'll see if we where that comes up. As we do every week, we hit here. We talk about some of newer or big name games that we've been playing. Some during our first segment. Our second segment is related to the news, and that's where we see which soapbox and who is standing on it tonight. And then in our third segment, we look at any other games that we have been playing and kind of rounding out our playlist for the week. So let's get started with, if you are watching the video stream, Tao Master has his Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream background on. So, Tao Master, is it living a dream or is it more like work?
No, it's definitely a dream. Sometimes a fever dream, but some of the things that happens in this game, kind of weird. But it's Tomodachi, excuse me, Tomodachi life, living the dream is more, I would say, in akin to like a Sims game, where you're not really controlling the characters. You kind of create them, like you can create them from scratch. There's also kind of a help mode or section when you're creating a character. Say, hey, they might just throw you through like 5 or 6 prompts, and then it kind of creates it. The computer or AI creates it on its own, or you can just go in there and like create characters. Like I said, from scratch, and down to every little detail, eyebrows, eyes, how big they are, move them up and down, left and right, whatever you want to do on the person's face or the Mii's face. These are all Mii's that are that you're creating here. Yes, they're still around. They're not gone yet. So yeah, but it's more, like I said, it's more of like a Sims. You just create these characters. They just walk around, kind of do their own thing. You can grab them and kind of like put them on another person or another Mii, have them talk or some like kind of little goofy skit happens, or you can place them on an object or something that maybe you've put on the island that you're controlling here. Like I only have a few things right now. I have like a couple of vending machines where you can kind of plop on there, and they'll just like get a soda or some kind of food or something. There's like a little playground that I've created too on my island. So there's like a seesaw and these little animals that kind of, I don't even know what these things were ever called, but little animals they sit on and you kind of just rock back and forth on them. A couple of those. So there's just other things you can totally like rearrange your island too. So as you can kind of see in the screenshot behind me, there's like sand, there's grass, there's little roads you can do, like walkways and stuff like that. There's different shops that pop up and that you can earn as you level up. So there's like a level, like an overall level that you kind of keep going, or you can level up on, earn experience on as you're doing different things for the Mii's, like feeding them, or sometimes there's relationships, like they want to be friends with somebody. You can get married. Actually, I just did. And I had a kid already within a week.
Wow, you're moving really fast. That is
that's right, moving fast.
Are you sure about this, Tal? I don't know. It seems like you might be rushing into things here in your living a dream.
The one thing I didn't realize was this is actually a Nintendo developed game, published and developed by Nintendo.
Did you play the first one on 3DS?
Yeah, 3DS. No, I never did play that one.
Okay.
So I never realized. Yeah, it was a Nintendo owned property. So Nintendo EPD, which is, I guess, is their entertainment planning and development. So I guess kind of like their, research and development, but more, I guess, because they actually develop games and stuff. So they've like helped on a bunch of different games over the years. So Splatoon, Zelda, Mario's, and so it's just done a bunch of different stuff. So but yeah, I think this might be one of their only original IPs, I think, as far as I see in their list here, that I can tell. Looks like they did a Rhythm Heaven. They're going to do Rhythm Heaven too. I think that's coming out this year, if it hasn't come out already.
That's a summertime release. Rhythm Heaven Groove, I think, is what it is. It's a summertime release. Yeah,
so it's pretty interesting. But yeah, so not so much, Animal Crossing or Pocopia. It's a little bit different, like I said. So you're kind of more molding everything around like these Mii's more than the Mii's themselves, other than just their creation. So like I said, there's just like goofy scenarios. Like there's different things you can give them, like clothes, obviously, and objects. Like you collect different objects as you're leveling up, or you can buy them like the different stores and stuff. But there's also expressions you can do, like something they say when they're they're greeting somebody, when they're hungry, when they're saying goodbye to somebody, just other things like that. And they have kind of like canned responses within the game, but then you could just put whatever you want. Like you can just type in text and just put in some goofy stuff. So I have like people talking about UFOs and Bigfoot and just like actors and actresses and just like all kinds of just goofy stuff that I have, they talk about. It's just kind of funny just because they have like, there's like a generic canned response that they kind of going through as they're doing their conversations, but then they throw in whatever word that you put in their activity or whatnot, whatever you did. So just kind of another cozy game, because I don't have enough of them I'm playing right now. So I got that one, Pocopia. So playing a little bit of the both of those here and there. So probably more of this one right now, just because it's the new shiny right now. So but this one I can sit down for like a half hour, an hour maybe, at the most.
That was kind of my question, Rick. Is this something like Animal Crossing where you've got kind of a set number of things that you're trying to do each day, or that certain events are timed around real life clocks? Or is this something where you could put in more than a half hour, or after a half hour have you kind of done your routine for the day?
Yeah, it does have a real time clock, so there's always, it's always counting down for whatever, time zone you're in at the time. It is kind of cut up into from like 5 in the morning to 10 at night. So it's like 5 in the morning to 10 in the morning. There's like one section, and certain things happen during that section. And then from 5 to 10, I'm sorry, from 10 to 5, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. is like, midday or whatever afternoon for them. And then 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. is, their evening. And then after that, it's kind of just, you don't do anything really. Or there's no timed events between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. So just kind of free for all at that point. But yeah, I think even now I've gone for like an hour. Like I think I have maybe 8, maybe 9 Miis that have been created, that I've created on the island. So like you kind of jump in between them. Like they'll have like a little exclamation point or like a little like squiggly line, and that kind of, notifies you that, hey, they want something or something's going to happen. So you can click on them, and then they go through their little spiel or whatever. And then there's also like kind of mini games too that you can do. Like there's like a shadow game where there's like a shadow of an object or food, or something, depends on the subject they pick. Sometimes even just the Miis themselves. I think now that I have so many Miis, they kind of do that game, and just other kind of little kind of mini games you can play with them. So it does kind of, I do get into like at least an hour, or sometimes a little bit over. I did a little bit over these past few days because I was kind of rearranging my island too. So, you can kind of get lost in that part. And then there's still things I don't have unlocked. Like you can change the interiors of of their houses, either as a whole, and at some point, I don't have this part locked out or unlocked yet. You can, actually, I guess I'm assuming rearrange stuff because there's like an interior change or something. I forgot what it was called, but I don't have that unlocked yet, so I can't do that. I can only change like a whole room, so like a whole room, like a themed room, like I think there's one that's like a garage, like a car garage, or like a dig site and stuff, like kind of like there was in Animal Crossing and other kind of games like that. But it looks like you can get more nuanced at some point, in the future. I don't know if it's a level thing or how many Miis I have, or I just got to unlock something else. I'm not really sure. So just like in most games, I don't want to look up stuff. Like I'll just, do it organically, unlock this stuff, if it happens, it happens. So that's fine. But yeah, I can lose at least an hour or so in this game, just kind of following the Miis and seeing what they're kind of the goofy situations they get into. So, but yeah, that's pretty much Tomodachi life. But yeah, I'm having a good time with it so far.
Nice. Game Logic, any follow-up questions there on Tomodachi Life?
So I just want to get verification. So this is not a live service game, right?
No, it's totally single player. There's no multiplayer at all, actually, in it, which I think a lot of people have kind of been buzzing about a little bit. I'll say buzzing, that there's not any kind of like multiplayer. You can't even like trade Miis or visit an island like in a dream state like you can in Pokopia and Animal Crossing. It's totally self-contained.
So then it sounds like it's a little kind of like SimCity like.
Yeah.
That it's totally encapsulated. Okay. Does it?
Yeah.
But are there elements of it that make it feel like a grind game? Like you mentioned that like there were things that you didn't have unlocked yet. So do you feel like that's just a symptom of like the first playthrough? Do you think like, okay, once I go on to like my like Civilization always has like that opening grind, right? Where you're literally just sitting there, like you set things up. There's kind of a flurry of activity for the first few turns, and then you hit a point where it's just like click, 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 and turn, and turn, and turn. You're just waiting for things to be built. So do you feel like it's a thing you're going to settle into, or is it overly grindy in the beginning, or kind of what are your feelings about that during the onboarding?
I haven't really seen it grinding because, like I said, sometimes I just lose myself and just kind of go in between the in between the Miis as they're have their little thing pop up over their head saying they need help with something or whatnot. So I don't think so. Like I think right now I'm in the 30s somewhere, like low to mid 30s level. So I don't know how But like if there's a level cap, I'm assuming there is some kind of level cap. I'm assuming at some point once I do unlock everything, it's more than just maybe it will be kind of just like okay, I've kind of run the course. There's nothing really to unlock, which I kind of get sometimes. That kind of happened to me in Animal Crossing at a certain point. Like I had unlocked all the buildings, and it was more just like waiting for the seasons and stuff. Like I haven't hit anything there, mostly probably because we've already gone past the major holidays. Obviously, we just went past Easter, so I don't know what would be next. Maybe they might do something for Mother's Day. Probably 4th of July, most likely. They'll probably like pop up something, but probably not until later in the year where the major holidays start hitting, where I'll start to see more in-game stuff.
Now, have you played The Sims?
I played a little bit, like every once in a while. I'll try to do it, and I don't know. I kind of got bored quickly with The Sims, more so than I've ever done, more than this game and some of the other games kind of like that. So I don't know.
Okay, so you do. So then you do see the similarities, but you feel like this has a little bit more of a hook to it, and that's keeping you.
Yeah, it's more the kind of that Nintendo charm, I think. The little quirkiness of it. Obviously Sims is real life, and I'll do that in quotes. Not just in graphics, but even kind of how they do something. Yeah, and there's like updates you can do, and probably like mods and stuff. You're on PC that you can kind of get goofy with it, but more or less it's kind of just like everyday humdrum stuff. And even same thing kind of happened with Enzo. I forgot how you say that game, which is actually it's a beautiful game. Like the graphics are amazing, but that, and of course that's still in early access. So there's still stuff going on there, but I kind of was like, oh, okay, I've done what I wanted to do in this game. So, I'm just going to put it down for now, maybe wait for the 1.0 release or something. But this one, it still seems to be keeping my attention. It's been like 3 weeks now. I've had it for a while. I didn't have a chance to play it as much as I have, this past week. So that's why I want to talk about it now.
DBQ, you're a witness.
No, I think you covered it. The prosecution rests. Move on and call our
wall
next
behind you. You're kind of like a judge.
Yeah. I mean, it is, given your enjoyment of Nintendo charm and Animal Crossing, Pokemon, like this doesn't surprise me. My question, I guess, is, given that you've played other games with your family, is this something that because it's single player, they're not necessarily coming in, but is it something where it's up on the screen and your son or your wife is sitting around with you and kind of chuckling at the absurdness of the garbly speak and things like that?
No, because I'm usually been playing with just in handheld mode. So
what you're saying is you just sit in a corner, hunched over with all your delicious little Tamagotchi people.
All my little me's running around. Yes. But yeah.
All right.
I could probably see maybe my wife kind of getting into it. Maybe not my son, because he kind of got bored with Animal. He did try Animal Crossing for a little bit, and he stuck with it for a few weeks, but he kind of got bored with it even quicker than I did. So, but I've played those kind of games before too, so it wasn't too surprising on my side that I'd probably like a game like this.
Yeah. No, that's great. Thanks. All right. Well, I have been playing something that is in beta, early access, Soulframe. So Digital Extremes follow-up from Warframe is Soulframe. I'm a subscriber to Game Informer, the relaunched independent Game Informer, and in the May edition there were little cards for a Soulframe code. Right now you can get in through purchasing a founder's pack. It's not and other types of giveaways, but it's not necessarily, it's in an early state. It sure doesn't look like it. Man, this is a beautiful game. The graphics engine that they're using, I mean, it's been probably 7 years since I've even booted up Warframe. So I don't know what state that engine is in right now, but this is a beautiful looking game. Feels like a different, Warframe's engine, Warframe launched, 2012, 2013, somewhere in there.
I think it was the same year as Destiny, right? The original Destiny?
I thought so too, but I think it came out earlier, because the original Destiny was 2014. Game Logic fact-checking us.
Yeah,
what?
2013.
2013 or 14?
13, March 25th of 20. Well, the open beta was March 25th, 2013.
Okay.
Then it made its way on the PlayStation 4 in 2013, Xbox One in 2014. It actually came to Switch, if we all recall.
Yeah.
Yep. And
I
actually,
think they just did an update too. I believe
they just did a Switch 2 version of it as well.
Yeah.
So this is a game that so Soulframe is a game that I anticipate has a long life cycle to it as well. I mean, they've done a lot of support and updates and story and all kinds of things within Warframe over the 12 years that it's 13 years that it's been out. So I'm not in any rush in Soulframe, but I'm loving it. I'm really enjoying what I'm playing. So it's set in more of a fantasy aspect. You can choose from 3 different characters, kind of melee sword class, a magic class, and a ranged archer class. And then within those, you've got 2, it seems like 2 different, at this point, kind of spec trees that can take you down. Like I went with an archer, and I can be more of a rogue or more of a trickster with like smoke escape or sword offhanding, wielding. But it is very much an action game. This is, it's a role playing game, but it's action and it's combat. It is not kind of frame county in terms of like a Souls-like game. There's not counters, at least in the class that I'm playing. I haven't seen counters when I tried out the other classes. You've got some 3 different magic abilities kind of tiered to kind of red, blue, and green elements, right? And earth, wind, and fire. But they have different names. There's a lot of mythology already built up around it. I think they're in like episode 12 of kind of its early release piece, or 18, one of the 2. But they've been, this has been in beta for a while now, and they've been adding things to it. It feels like beta because there's not a great onboarding. There's a nice little short tutorial that gives you gets you into gives you a little bit of the story, some combat, gives you a chance to try out your different potential classes, choose a class, and figure out how the different ability systems work. You've got gear that, like in any other gear-based RPG, it's going to have lots of different stats and special, potential abilities to it as it gets into higher rarity. It's got elemental affinity to it. You've got 2 different skill trees that you're filling out within your character. And then you're kind of tossed out into the world. You've got a bird, a sparrow, that serves both as your wayfinding, that you can click a button and it'll give you a little guidance on where to go. And also, if you die or when you die in the world, you respawn as a sparrow, and you can choose to either respawn at the respawn point or fly the sparrow back to where you died. I haven't figured out yet I haven't looked it up either. If you get hit by an enemy or run into a wall as a sparrow, if your corpse run is no longer there. Hey, Real Nate, glad to have you here on this off night. We just got done talking about Tomodachi Life, and now we're talking about Soulframe. So it is, I find myself, just as Tao was saying, not looking things up, just kind of exploring, and it's scratching a real exploration itch for me. And maybe that's because I recently booted up Lord of the Rings Online for its 19th anniversary and realized that, that looks like a 19-year-old game. But it is giving me this kind of open world, even though I can get a critical path to go down and have that guide. I find myself going off the beaten path, discovering, different treasure chests and crafting materials and stumbling into enemies, and sometimes enemies that are over leveled than where I'm at. And twice now have run into what I thought was a stone that suddenly turns into a creature and sucks the life out of me. So much so that the first time it happened, I jumped jumped back because totally startled. It was a kind of shadow space, and so I wasn't able to see so much. But it really is. It's scratching this kind of like Avowed did last year for me, of immersing me in a world, giving me a chance, to just kind of take time to explore the world. The combat, I'm enjoying the combat. I'm starting to pick at the lore a little bit. There's a lot there to dig into if you wanted to, with journals and codex types of things. So it is, it's the third person kind of over the shoulder, what you would expect from the makers of Warframe. But I'm surprised at how much I'm enjoying it.
So, DBQ, you touched a bit on the question that I wanted to ask when you talked about exploration. So, I think there's an argument that can be made that games that are kind of this ilk can sometimes tend to unbalance, meaning they are big open world, and the systems can sometimes be a little hokey or not as deep. You could definitely argue that some of the open world, maybe Ubisoft games, are much more exploration leaning than they are systems leaning. And then you have a game like or a series like Legend of Heroes, the Trails series, which, having playing Beyond the Horizon earlier this year, I definitely felt like at least it pulled me in much more so into the systems, and the systems were really deep and really intricate and really sometimes overly complicated, to the point where I was just like I'm not going way out of my way to explore because I have so much stuff to dig at systems wise that I just don't have the time. So do you feel like this game is incentivizing you to lean more in the direction of exploration, or that the game is causing you to lean more in the direction of deep systems? Because my experience with Warframe is, it was kind of checkerboard breadcrumb when it came to exploration, very mission and task oriented. So that didn't feel like it was as much of a thing. But like the depth of the systems was, I spent a lot of time in the lab, like constantly configuring my Warframe.
So I think what they're trying to go for, and again, I'm only a couple hours in, all right? And I think that what I'm experiencing early game is very much exploration. The where this feels different than Warframe, like early Warframe, you were very much in kind of instance areas, right? You were loading in, running a mission, coming back out. This is much more of the kind of so far seamless open world kind of that you would expect in like a MMORPG. That you are kind of, there are times when you are going into a cave or you go through a waterfall that kind of, you can tell that it's loading in something. I have transported places, and there's actually a mechanism, like part of your menu system is you falling backwards and transporting into like the soul world to do your upgrades and to do some other things. So it's not completely a seamless open world, but it is much more of a vast open world that in the early game invites you to explore. Digging around the Reddit, the subreddits on this game, definitely there is some buildcraft, and the end game kind of runs as people are running the dungeons again and again for certain types of drops. Like, they're aware of what is going to keep their player base going, but also it seems like they've built, at least at this point, a pretty broad on-ramp for people to be welcomed in on. And then I think it would be interesting to see how they kind of broaden this out, right? Like, they've over time with Warframe, they've added lots of missions and hub worlds and plenty of other types of interactions, and so it certainly feels like this is in early days here, and there's lots of potential. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I will say that I got this code for free because I subscribed to it, but I enjoyed it enough that I bought a founders pack. $30, cosmetic stuff, the in-game currency. The founders pack, is not a bad transfer rate there, and the founders pack comes with 2 codes to share with friends. So, gentlemen, in the agenda tonight, you each have a code for Soulframe if you would like to give it a shot or pass it on to somebody else who thinks would be more interested than you. So, but I know Game Logic, you've played some Warframe over the years, and thought about you and Tao. Honestly, you try all kinds of things, and most of the time, if it's something you could play with some friends, you're down for at least giving it a try. So, yeah, again, I probably not going to be talking. I will be chipping away at this on and off. It's become kind of my end of night game where I can it's quiet and just kind of roam around some beautiful countryside, snipe a few enemies, explore a little bit, get to a next, level up, and relax and call it a night. Like, I know that there is more high intensity aspects to it, but for me, it's scratching that itch at this moment. So, all right, well, let's move into our headlines.
Actually, I'm sorry, I got a quick question before we move on there. So this is obviously a multiplayer game, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So did you do any multiplayer? Like is there like, I guess kind of like a Destiny where there's like strikes where you can kind of jump in with like a random people or dungeons or something that you can do?
There are dungeons that can be run, and like in an MMO, they're going to repopulate on a timer. I haven't got to the point where I've unlocked them yet. I have stumbled into areas where I saw another character with a goofy character name over the top of its head just standing in one spot, and I got a message saying like, you can't do, your grace is not present here, or something, basically telling me like, I don't know that I was supposed to stumble into this at this point. So yeah, it seems like, my guess is, and this was one of those where like some doors opened, I walk through a waterfall, it feels like it's loading in something else. So there will be shared areas along with individual kind of world as well. So as I'm running it, doesn't feel like it feels more single player at this point. Like I'm not running around in the world stumbling into people, and I think that is the way that it's set up. But I also, it could just be that it's early enough that in the beginner levels where I'm at, I'm not seeing that many people, but I'm pretty sure it is a little more instance in some of those ways.
Yeah, I mean, we'll probably all have to kind of pull the thread. And so, but like the way Warframe is multiplayer is really goofy. Like you launch the mission, and at some point before the mission, and this happens like you can only see it in the UI in like the little upper right hand corner. There's not like a big like, hey, so and so is like joining your mission. You go into the animation kind of like Destiny is, and you go into the animation and you see your like drop ship or whatever, and then you'll see like the other person's drop ship appear with you. And I think maybe up to two people can join, but like there's no, like when people join, they just join. Like there's no like, nobody like has like chatted to me and said, hey, you mind if I jump into your mission? And there's a toggle that you can select to say, hey, I'm open to other people joining my mission. So you just show up and you see another Warframe materialize with you. which is kind of the same way like some of the extraction shooters are. Like you just show up and like somebody spawns with you.
Right, you're just queuing in with a group of people. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they run the mission, and we've talked about this before. Then you extract, you get back to your base, and like again, the only way you can see that the person is still in your party is in this little tiny thing in the upper right hand corner. So it's not as obvious and like like in your face multiplayer. Like unless you deliberately go, and that's when randos connect, right? If you can go about and deliberately, like obviously like pair up with someone, but just like the rando, and which would be where you are like in this early access version of the game, because you don't necessarily know anybody else who's playing. So
yeah, right, you're not running in. It's not like what you think of as an MMO where people are just running over the top of each other all day long.
Right, because like again in Warframe, the Warframe only shows up if they've joined. Like you don't instance into a mission area and see like every other Warframe who happens to be running that mission. Like it's your instance, and you only see another player if they've actually actively joined with your party. So it wouldn't surprise me if something is similar to that in Soulframe.
That's been my as well in terms of feeling pretty isolated in spots, but intentionally so.
Do they have a release date for the like full version yet?
I have not seen one. From what I've read, there's not one announced, and I think Warframe stayed in beta for years and years. Innate said, as he just pulled it up on screen, right? Playing Warframe as well, so or had played it back in the day.
Yeah, and he mentions he used to run with the full team, and I think that's probably based on like when you joined in on a Warframe, and like like I went into Warframe just on my own. I also went into Warframe like years after it had been in run, so no one was really running it like consistently. So I was just going in and just played solo. So anybody that I connected with was just a rando. So
nice. All right. Well, Game Logic, go ahead. Let's stay on the mic because we are moving into our news. You've got the first news story here coming about another May game, 007 First Light.
Yeah, this news story over on the Gamer. 007 First Light will be a pretty long experience, it seems. With the month of May officially upon us, that means it's time for another batch of anticipated titles. Chief among them is 007 First Light, a brand new James Bond experience from IO Interactive that harkens back to the Bond titles of old with some new flair. 007 First Light is due out on May 27th. And in the lead up to its release, we've had a load of information and goodies dropped, including a title track performed by none other than Lana Del Rey. Not only is Del Rey lending her vocal chops for the song, but IO Interactive kept the Bond tradition alive with a unique title sequence. So the main meatball of this is that a YouTuber, Joe Raptor, has been talking to the devs and maybe been doing some interviews on the side. Says that the game clocks in at around 20 hours, give or take. You may be able to mainline through the game and get it down to like 15. And then obviously you could probably go beyond that if you are a completionist. Calls out some comparison to other first person action adventure game titles like Uncharted, which came, those games come in around 15 hours. I mentioned the shortest here is Lost Legacy at 7 hours, but Lost Legacy is not a full game; it's an expandable. So it's kind of like a Miles Morales kind of thing. Indiana Jones says that it's about 16 hours, and the Tomb Raider trilogy was about 13 and a half. So, I mean, 20 hours. I'm comfortable with that. I don't. I'm in this mode where I don't really particularly need, single player, particularly action adventure games to be much more than that. So yeah, that feels like a total comfort zone to me. Even a tiny bit shorter, I would be fine with. But as I said, you may be able to mainline it and get it down to even less.
Yeah, right. It feels like something in that 15 to 20 hour spot is good for a story-driven game. I think a challenge that we've all seen at some game or another is, trying to stretch it out to hit that 25, 30 hour mark. And so much of that feels like padding sometimes. So hopefully this means that it's a relatively tight and focused experience. And in true IO fashion, probably with, lots of sandboxy kind of ability for replay to tackle a mission a little bit differently and see how things play out. All right. Well, move on to the next news story. The next news story I put on here because it feels like we should mention it, but it also feels like a news story having the weather person tell you that it's raining when you look outside and it's raining. Guess what? It rains 100% of the time on a rainy day. And this is the news story from Xbox for last week. Microsoft had their quarterly earnings, and Xbox hardware revenue drops 33% year over year for quarter three. This is coming from GameIndustry.biz, from Sophie McAvoy. This is only quarter three. We haven't. We've hit the end of quarter of the fiscal year with the end of March, but usually those reports don't come until this month in terms of kind of full-on fiscal year. Sometimes even comes into the summer.
I think their fiscal year ends in June.
So Microsoft's? Okay.
Yeah, I think Sony's ends in March, and so their earnings call coming up this Friday will be for the year end fiscal
the full fiscal year. Yep. Okay. Yep. And it even says it right there in the numbers for the 3 months ended in March 31st. And if that is quarter three, then yes, their fiscal year does end in June as well. So, I throw it out here, see if you have any other thoughts. Their overall game revenue dropped 7%. Content and services declined by 5% year over year. None of this feels surprising because of the general sentiment out there around the platform itself. I think the fact that is probably a hopeful piece in Xbox piece here is that gaming revenue overall fell by such a small percentage compared to what their overall hardware sales, that people that are in their ecosystem continue to support them. And, it's not a shock that their hardware and kind of intake numbers are not in a great spot. But we've had news stories for up to a year ago about consoles coming off shelves and not being restocked, and they're out there talking about sending out influencer gear for Project Helix, right, to the next piece. So I think the fact that their spending did not drop nearly as much as it could feels like a glimmer of hope in an Xbox era now, where they're still trying to figure out their footing and potentially, as Game Logic alluded to earlier, making some other changes within the division as well. Any other thoughts here on this one, gentlemen?
I actually feel that it is a little surprising.
Okay.
Because the for 3 years now, like, we've had the constantly declining hardware number, so that's not the surprise. But the surprise here, or at least the oh no, last quarter wasn't just an anomaly, right, is that now we are starting to see, after we saw overall gaming revenue rise, right after the Activision acquisition,
right, and now it's down year over year,
right, and now we've seen that 2 quarters in a row. So the first time was holiday quarter, which was a super big deal.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that, right? Like that was concerning.
Yeah, and so again, we're seeing it in overall gaming revenue, and right, because for a while, overall gaming revenue was still increasing slightly, even though hardware revenue was declining, which means that the acquisitions and the software sales were compensating for the backward slide in hardware. Now we have hit this inflection point where the declining sales in hardware is now coupled with a declining revenue in software, and it feels like it's kind of like maybe the roller coaster has kind of hit right? The apogee. So we're also seeing 5%, right, for the second quarter in a row, yet again down 5% in content and services, which means Game Pass and game sales. So what is, so what is happening is, as we kind of talked, I think we talked about during the Game Pass price cutting, is like you have, whether it's by their own cause or whatever anomaly is going on in the market, dynamic is going on in the market, they have a Call of Duty problem and a software problem.
Yep, we did. Yeah, this is exactly, I think we talked about that it's
right,
not only one or the other, right? A Game Pass problem and a Call of Duty problem.
And I don't know how I can see how you turn one of those around. I don't know how you turn both around. So, and cutting the price of Game Pass, like the move to cut the price of Game Pass, does that stop the bleeding, at least, is entirely dependent upon, do enough people come back that for every person who comes back, the $23 extra that you put in your pocket compensate for the $7 that you've given up across the board for all Game Pass Ultimate subscribers.
I think that's a huge piece here when you look at this, being down for services 5%. The cut, this is coming out shortly before Game Pass dropped, right? Like, does the Game Pass drop just kind of open the wound further, because you're not reacquiring people, and now you're making less on everybody? But yeah, I think you're right. Like, you saw through my boardroom corporate spinning to say, hey, it's not so bad. Look at this big number that's bad. Here's a small number that's not as bad. But you're absolutely right. Like, we talked about warning signs coming out of the holiday. And now with 2 quarters and, and instability in, production and other types of things, I think this to me is not it's hard to see the daylight through all the smoke at Xbox gaming at this point.
Yeah, and I don't think your I don't think your original assessment was like trying to cover it. I mean, I think this is there's a moment of inertia around Xbox, right? Where kind of, quite honestly, like, I hate to say it, but like sometimes we get so accustomed and lulled into reporting bad Xbox news that it's sometimes difficult to see when there's actually worse Xbox news, right? And note that that's like actually a delta from where they were, and that things have gotten, worse, so to speak. The other thing of note here, and this is a trend I'm starting to notice. So this is also the second quarter in a row that Amy Hood has literally made the same comment. And again, this is coming from a person who's been an Amy Hood fan. This is the second quarter in a row she says, this reflects a prior year comparable that benefited from strong first-party content. Right? And like when she said it last quarter, I hate to say it, she was absolutely incorrect. It was absolutely a misrepresentation. They shipped more software in the holiday quarter of 2024 than they shipped in 2025. So the statement that they had strong first-party content, at least at face value, like if you're quantifying it, is absolutely incorrect. Now you can argue about whether or not, they launch more, I don't know, preferential titles, but normally when you're a CFO and you make that comment, it's about quantity and volume. So she made it again this quarter, and this quarter, what they shipped, they shipped Avowed on PlayStation. Like I think, and I haven't actually pulled this thread, so I'm now doing this live. I think it's a misrepresentation again, because this quarter they shipped Avowed on PlayStation 5, Towerborn on PlayStation 5, Towerborn on Windows, and they shipped Towerborn on Series X, South of Midnight on Switch 2, and South of Midnight on PlayStation 5. So,
and all of those have released prior. Towerborn has been in early access on Xbox and on PC, so it's not like it's a brand new experience. And I think I'd have to go back and pull that thread as well. Like in 25, in the first quarter of 25, you had Avowed originally on PC and Xbox.
But that's the exact point.
That's,
they had it on platforms where Game Pass exists. So theoretically, their content that they shipped this quarter, they shipped to platforms where those titles had to be bought. So the statement that they had a stronger content portfolio, just absolute no. Like at least it's such a spin doctor like thing that it's like it's arguable that it's not even correct. So the telltale thing will be, does she say the exact same thing next quarter? Right. Then it becomes a thing like, okay, yes, it's definitely like deliberate spin, and they're definitely kind of covering for, they're trying, I guess they're trying to give the new CEO like coverage time, right, until she's actually able to make something that makes a difference. But I mean, here next quarter we're gonna see at least the first indications of whether or not the Game Pass price cut actually moved the needle.
Well, and also next quarter, if they're not up, that's even more of a sign, because this coming quarter we've got Forza Horizon 6, which by all accounts is charting pretty well. Like, maybe.
No, but the big thing is it's not shipping on PlayStation 5.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And last year in this quarter, you had the
Forza Horizon 5 shipping on PlayStation 5, and that thing sold 5 million units. So, and this is what I keep going about. Like, there are lots of people running around talking about like there's this momentum behind bringing back exclusives, and I'm like, Forza Horizon 5, quantifiably now, Forza Horizon is the flagship. Like, Halo's not any longer like on the springboard as the flagship.
I think it's their only flagship at this point. I don't know. Yeah.
Forza Horizon, your flagship, it made its big bonga debut on PlayStation. It didn't move the needle as much when it debuted on your own platform. So your best bet, like after Call of Duty, right, your biggest poker chip on the table now is Forza Horizon, and you're not shipping it on PlayStation 5. This is what I say. When these earnings come back next quarter, people say exclusives are coming back, and I keep saying the word and rumor that you guys are hearing that they're discussing exclusives, you need to understand that could equally mean that Sharma is asking, why are we still doing timed exclusives? It makes no sense, because it quite honestly makes no fiscal sense to not ship Forza Horizon 6 on PlayStation 5. The only reason it makes sense is because it's the 25th year anniversary. You've got Gears of War shipping in the summer. You've got Halo shipping in the fall. You've got Fable shipping in the fall. The only reason it makes sense is because you're spreading the portfolio right under the Phil Spencer regime, and you go, hey, I know you guys need 6 more months to get it ready for PlayStation 5, but you cannot put out Forza Horizon 6 in the fall. Like that's just going to tank everybody's sales, and it doesn't make sense. I'd rather have you ship Forza Horizon 6 on Xbox and PC in the spring, and then you could ship it to PlayStation 5, like either in the fall or maybe even spring of calendar year 26. That's the only reason why it makes sense to me. But, I strongly believe that this whole notion that they're discussing exclusives means we need to shift to shipping everything on day and date, and that's how I want you to plan from now on.
It wouldn't surprise me, right? I mean, that's not the way people are receiving it or kind of interpreting it that, but looking at sales numbers and hardware numbers, it sure would be difficult to make a financial case that it's even financially viable to be exclusive on Xbox at this point.
Yeah, the only reason, that's not going to cause people to buy your box when you've just raised prices on it. So you've taken the least competitive gaming hardware product on the market and you've raised prices, which is obviously going to have a negative impact on demand. You're not going to be able to shore that up with exclusive content at this point. Like the best hope you have is that it may incentivize some people to sign up for Game Pass, but all that's going to do is cause churn. Like, I don't believe they're going to sign up for Game Pass. Like, and now your day and date is paywalled by Ultimate. So, you're not going to get people to sign up necessarily long term if they're only signing up for a timed exclusive. They're gonna sign up. They're gonna play the game. They're gonna turn their subscription off and turn it back on when Gears comes out, maybe if you're lucky. But all that's not healthy for a subscription service, because that churn is what causes you problems, right? In being able to firmly project your earnings, which, your inability to do that is what Wall Street doesn't like.
How, any other thoughts here?
No, I mean, I think you guys pretty much said everything that could be said about this. Yeah, we'll just have to see like what happens in the future, like with Xbox. I don't know. I'm like Game Logic was saying about the Game Pass. Like, yeah, I'm probably gonna do exactly that. This, in a few weeks with Forza Horizon, I'm just gonna re-up again, like I did with. Well, I did it with Call of Duty, but technically I was doing it for Sea of Thieves, but it ended up being a Call of Duty thing, like I did last month, and I'll do it again this month, where I'll do a month and play 6, Horizon 6 for however long, and then, whenever it runs out, most likely. So, do we know like what else is coming out this year for Xbox as far as, I'm gonna say exclusives once again in quotes? So,
Forza Horizon, Gears,
besides
Halo Combat. What is it? Halo Combat. It's not Evolved. It's Halo.
Is that that's the remake, right?
Yeah, it's the campaign kind of anniversary. Yeah.
Yeah, and Fable. So
yeah, Fable supposedly. Yep. Yeah, we'll see.
And there might be some other things that we didn't know Kiln was coming out. So
yeah, I would think there's.
We got summer stuff coming up soon. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be stuff, but really haven't heard anything. I mean, other than those ones. So, and I completely forgot about the Halo, and I don't know how big of a smash that's going to be.
As well. So
yeah, just being a single player thing. So I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned since you wants to make a data driven decision, and the data shows multi-platform is a huge revenue source for you. Yeah, I mean, and I like it's questionable what's going on with sales now, right? So it's 50-50, 90, right? Whether or not the sales on PlayStation are the stronger thing now, or whether or not sales on PlayStation are kind of declining because the novelty is worn off. I will say my own belief, and I've had days where I've believed like one of the two, right? But I will say one of the warnings I put out was like you have to watch and be aware of where, again, there's an inflection point where they are potentially making more money by shipping games to PlayStation and Nintendo Switch than they are shipping games to their own platform. And that will cause, right, a big strategic decision. Here's where I'll add in the little tiny dollop of the stuff that I announced today, and the thing that's possibly concerning. Either Forza Horizon 6 is so locked in wire tight that there's zero concern about it, but I find it really strange that for a month there has been every week some Xbox thing generated by them talking, and it has had nothing to do with games. They completely suffocated and drowned out Kiln and didn't talk about it at all. They are talking about everything under the sun other than their games that are coming out. And it's 2 weeks before the launch of Forza Horizon 6 and not a peep. But yet what they leaked today was all about how they brought in a new executive leadership team formulated entirely from her old team over in Core AI. Mm-hmm. I'm like, again, two weeks before your flagship title launches. And this is what the flagpole is concerned about putting out on the street.
Yeah, right. At this point, reviewers have code for Forza Horizon 6, and the narrative is still around the kind of chaos in leadership.
You would think there would be some buzz reels, some like some trailers, something, some gameplay snippets, coming out from like core marketing. It's just really, really super weird to me.
Well, what
Real Nate, sorry, before you go, Tom, I think Real Nate made a good point here as well. I feel like that's already happened in terms of Xbox buying power has shifted to the PC for them. So good call on that, Real Nate. Tom, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just saying, going back to kind of what Real Nate said about her saying, she's data driven, and obviously if the data is showing it's multi-platform, that's going to go against what she said originally about going back to exclusives, because then how is that going to happen? maybe I just have to go back and see like what the actual quote was, because to see, because obviously, corporate people, they have stuff like totally, written out specific, and once it goes out to the news, sometimes the news like rearranges stuff, or might not say it exactly how they said it. So maybe it's just something, what that exclusivity is actually going to be.
Well, the quote was there was a fan who said to her on social media that they wanted her to bring back exclusives, and her response, literally her first weekend in the seat as CEO, she hadn't even walked in the door on Monday yet. Right? Her response to them was, "Hear you," and I'm like, that to me, quite honestly, is atypical of what you say as a CEO. What you do not do is you do not create expectations with a fan base unless you are genuine and real about it. And it's all on this notion of toying with the idea of like, we're considering it, so nothing's off the table. But I'm like, in my opinion, until something's on the table, you don't create this thing unless you're stringing people along and desiring them to keep investing in the ecosystem when there's potentially like a swerve coming down the road. And then the other thing that's been leaked out to the press is this whole notion of that according to different sources, like they are actively discussing what are they going to do about it. So it's actually the vision document that came out said, buried like 2/3 of the way through the text and not bulleted, was the comment that they're going to revisit their strategy on exclusives and windowing. And windowing, which most of the press missed, is that topic of timed exclusivity, right? So true exclusives versus timed exclusivity. And like I said, at the time that comment came out and everybody said, oh, this means they're possibly, I'm like, it could equally mean that they're talking about not doing exclusives, because they still do timed exclusivity now. So the discussions could be that it's coming off the table. A prominent leaker who has been correct on very many occasions also mentioned that the discussion of exclusives has never gone away. Like, it's always gone on. Like, every time they're meeting, they're discussing, are we going to keep this exclusive or are we not? Just because they have, right? Because again, even right before the regime change, like one of their the new guy who's in charge of publishing, right, said that, hey, one of our things we've been bad about is that our timed exclusivity thing is kind of all over the place, and one of our things that we want to improve on is that we want to be more consistent about that. Like, is it going to be 3 months? Is it going to be 6 months? Is it going to be day and date? Like, we're trying to get to a place where we're more consistent. So that discussion was always already underway before she even took over.
Well, this will not be the last time we talk about Microsoft and their state of affairs. So let's, for the sake of time, we're going to keep on moving. We got 2 more news stories here. We'll see how long we take on each of these. But Tao, you want to tell us about the fact that Valve released a controller?
Yeah, so originally it was going to be the 1 article, but it turned into 2 because unfortunately we didn't have our Sunday show. But so last week they had announced the actual launch date and pricing of the new Steam controller. So May 4th, which was yesterday, for $99. And of course, the internet was the internet. People were commenting and stuff on it. And I don't. Had they pretty much released like kind of the features of this controller? I can't remember exactly. I know they kind of have a rundown here on this.
The week before it was out for press to do reviews of, and that's, I think, the most place where you saw any type of features was the week before it was released.
Yeah, it was mostly coming from people who had it for hands-on and were reporting, it's TMR sticks, it's, whatever.
Yeah, because before that, like when they announced it, they really didn't say much about it, right? Like when they announced all 3 of the new devices. So I was pretty sure they had said anything. So yeah, they kind of have a rundown here. You have the plug and play controller puck, which obviously is also a charger for it. Next gen mag sticks, like Game Logic said, HD rumble, grips, gyro, all this other stuff. All for $99. So a little bit more than most standard controllers for most of the consoles and stuff. Those usually run between like 40 and 60, depending on where you get it from. Obviously less though than the pro controllers, which can be 120 to 150 maybe, I think is the highest one. Xbox or PlayStation's, the big high-end controller. So I would say the price range is pretty good. It's not too bad for everything you get, and plus it has the little thumb pads on it too. I guess my only concern was this controller. And if I hadn't bought a new controller, I probably would have tried to get one of these. I do say try because in the news article, when that released or launched, I should say, because you can only order it through Valve or through Steam. It was sold out in 30 minutes. So it went up at I think it was 1 p.m. Eastern, Eastern Standard Time, Eastern, time, and within 30 minutes it was completely out of stock. They do mention like throughout the day, and then even I think through today, even sometimes if you check the page, sometimes it says it's in stock. You can kind of jump on it if you can, but you pretty much got to just sit there and watch the page to see if it comes out. But I actually was, if I hadn't just bought a new controller, I might have actually tried to pick one of these up. But I don't know if you gentlemen had the opportunity to try to, or if you even were even interested in trying to get this new controller.
I got FOMO in the 11th hour after saying I wasn't getting one. I said when the word came out that it was going up for sale, I originally said I want one, but I really want it for like the Steam machine, so I'll just wait. I got FOMO at the last minute, but then when the time passed, I was like occupied with something at work, so I actually just completely. I was like 3 hours later, I was like, oh, I forgot it went up for sale. So yeah, I didn't log into the page and try.
Nice.
Decision made for you then.
Yeah, pretty much. And DB, yep. I'm assuming.
No, I didn't. I think it's interesting, but it is, if you have a Steam Deck, kind of what, in terms of specs and what you're getting. So it's very similar in that. So I think it looks very functional. I have plenty of other controllers that work just fine. So Soldier for Life, thanks for joining us. Glad to have you here on this off night on a Tuesday, or if Hero Down Under snips through on a Wednesday morning, depending on where you are and when you are listening. So, Tao, any other thoughts here on this one before we move on to the next?
No, I guess my only other concern is the parallel sticks, because I don't really like the parallel sticks. Like I like them offset. The only thing that might be a little bit better is this controller might be a little bit wider than like the PlayStation and the other controllers. So it might be a little bit better. Just physically, my hands like cramp up like a lot faster with sticks like that than any other controller that are offset. So that's my only other concerns. But I'm sure eventually, they're going to be, rolling out, in mass. So everybody will get one eventually that wants one, I'm sure.
Okay, Game Logic, you want to hit us with the last news story? Let's circle back around to Microsoft one last time for the night before we turn the corner into the final gaming segment.
Yeah, like DBQ said, for the interest of time, I'll just blaze through this. So there was a rumor that was started, I think maybe last week, by a prominent leaker who sometimes sees information or hears information coming through from somewhere in the Call of Duty space. And had put out this note that they were hearing that that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 4, I think it is, was being developed for last gen consoles. The official social media account of Call of Duty then said, "Not sure where this one started, but it's not true. The next Call of Duty is not being developed for PlayStation 4." So I know Soldier for Life is in chat. He and I had a little back and forth today, not an argument, just a matter of opinion. And I just, for the purposes of setting the record of just kind of where I sit, which I think is largely where this panel sits and this show is oriented around, is I know when Nate the Hate says something, I know when Jason Schreier says something, like I know when like the prominent leakers like say something, but I don't it would be incredibly rare for you to ever see me like retweet what one of those guys has said. And you will, unless it's an incredibly slow news week, like a record-setting slow news week, you will never see it as a title of a news story on this show. We over the years have pretty much stood on the square of nailing down, like, when a thing is news, it is news, and when a thing is news, it is because some official statement has been said. Sometimes we break from that where there is a large amount of corroboration or amongst multiple leakers, but typically that is also because there has been some piece of evidence. Like like a document like from a corporation like has actually been captured, or there's like, or a code snippet has been found in something. Like if there's actual traceable code, we will sometimes like break ranks on that. But by and large, in general, like rumors is not what we report on. I am the same about my social media accounts, so I'm not gonna report what the person said who is a rumor because they heard something, but I will report when the official social media account has said something. Now, that being said, I hate to say, within the Xbox camp, on more than one occasion, in particular in the last year, an official social media account or an official executive has made a statement that has turned out to not be the truth. So last year, Microsoft refuted that there was a mandate for a 30% profit margin in the Xbox division. And then in January, the head of Obsidian had an interview with Jason Schreier where they reported that that was absolutely a thing at Xbox. So now, like slightly intermixed, it was like, yes, there's a 30% target, but the language he kind of used kind of said, well, that's a more of a objective, not necessarily like if you don't hit 30%, you will be punished, right, kind of thing. Although I'm also sure if you repeatedly don't hit 30% and present that you were just ignoring the mandate, that will be a different discussion, right? So you're not saying that this is necessarily the truth or that it can't swerve later, but I will say for the time being, that is the official statement from the corporation that they're not putting it. And the last thing I'll say is we've also had instances where like it is definitely feasible for two things to be true. As for instance, Modern Warfare 4 may absolutely have been play tested on a PlayStation 4. The result of that playtest may be this crap doesn't work worth a damn. We're not going to ship it, right? We've moved too far. The playtest may have been right. We do this thing in software engineering and in software development where we do performance testing, right? And sometimes performance testing yields the result that, hey, we're not going to ship on that hardware target because we can't get it running well enough. We can't get it optimized. So that that may very well be the case with this. That wouldn't be surprising to me at all. That that part of the way through, you do a performance test and say, hey, if this is just too bad and we can't fix it in time, this may just be the moment in time where we need to break bread with that objective. And you're also entering a time for this team where they have got probably next year they probably got to start like prepping at least a prototype version for Helix, and they're probably going to have to start developing something that is going to ship on Nintendo Switch 2. So they may just be hitting that inflection point where continuing to ship on last gen doesn't make sense.
All right, gentlemen, let's round the corner and cover anything else that has been in our playlist. Game Logic, you're talking about a game that today we had some press coverage and the previews around the Lego Dark Knight game coming out in May, but you went back to Arkham and Arkham City with Batman Arkham City on the Steam Deck, it looks like.
And on Series X. So the interesting nit is I realized today that these are apparently different versions. Haven't gone back and done all the forensics on release years, but so there was Batman Return to Arkham, which was a remastered version, which came out in, I think, 2016, that remastered Arkham City. And maybe some of the other games. There's also like
this is the one where it's bundled together with Arkham Asylum and Arkham City.
Yeah, but in some cases, but I was able to buy this separately as a discrete SKU. So I can't tell if it came out like before the bundle or after. Then on Steam, there is a Batman Arkham City Game of the Year edition. So on Steam, there is not a Return to Arkham edition, at least that I've been able to see. Now, I checked that on the Steam Deck, like over my 5G connection. I haven't actually sat down on a desktop and pulled the desktop client and looked at it. So
no, as somebody who has it, I think there's the Game of the Year edition, which came out after the fact that had all the DLC. And then I think it just loaded in texture packs because a lot of what the Return did in 16 is add some higher resolution and some lighting effects, things like that.
Yeah, so I've got some research to dig around to do because, quite honestly, I hate to say it, like this game actually looks better on my Steam Deck than it looked on my Xbox Series X, and that's not necessarily a matter of maybe a matter of textures, but more so a matter of lighting And so that could be a matter of like calibration and configuration. I'm not absolutely positive, but just at face value, just using default settings, it came up on Steam Deck and I was like, wait a second, this looks better. But regardless, what a wonderful game. Like it's really flabbergasting to me now as I'm sitting with this and like spending some time with it and stewing with it, right? And giving myself some time to sip my wine while I'm playing this game. It's really surprising to me how close the DNA is between this Batman series and the Spider-Man series. And yet I see from certain quadrants like a lot of hatred over the Spider-Man games that I never remember seeing with the Batman games. And in particular, in the wake of like Suicide Squad, we now see that like everybody's clamoring for like, hey, let's just get the Batman games back. We never needed the Suicide Squad stuff. But I'm like, those Spider-Man games are like
very much
close to what these Batman games were.
Very much similar combat, except instead of gliding on the ground, you are flipping and swinging to do the same type of counter that you would do as Batman.
Yeah, and even like the stealth stuff, right? Like so much of like the stealth combat, like pulling people down from like the overhead positions and using stealth and descending out of the darkness and all that kind of stuff is very similar. But just great game. We talk a lot in this show about onboarding. Such great onboarding. Like in this, like you spend a few moments as Bruce Wayne, and just like the whole comic book like mystique of like you're Bruce Wayne, you climb to the top of like the Arkham City on top of the Ace Chemical Factory, and Alfred like remote pilots the Batwing in and like airdrops your Batman gear onto the roof. And you climb up as Bruce Wayne and in that suit up moment, like just it's wonderful. Like to go back and play this. So regardless of like the slight graphical differences, like just a wonderful gameplay experience on Xbox and on Steam Deck. Plays wonderfully on Steam Deck. Feels great ergonomically. Just great, and all the systems and stuff like the detective mode, and game does a really good job of, despite the complexity of some of the combat mechanics, really does a wonderful job of like not. Remember, we've talked a lot about on this show as some games you get this kind of overwhelming combat mechanic where you get so many tools and so many options into combat that like you're just like, okay, like what control do I hit for like this gadget and that gadget, and like I've got like 15 different things that I can do in combat, and the game never feels unwieldy or gets away from you. So yeah, I'm having a great time with it. Love the rooftop motif and like gliding around Arkham City. Just great. It's great. Looking forward to spending some more time with this one.
Had you played it when it came out? Or is this, are you coming back to it? Or
I am coming back to it. I'm a weird person who, like, when these games initially dropped, I just, after so many years of bad superhero games, I just didn't buy the hype. Except for Arkham Knight. I did jump on Arkham Knight when it first came out. But Arkham City and what is the first one? The first, because this is actually the second game.
Yes.
I didn't come back to until like years later. As discount purchases and backlog buys. And I don't know that I've ever done like played like the first few hours of Arkham City. So yeah, but having a great time with it.
Nice. Well, enjoy, because it's a pretty spectacular game. Yeah, there's a reason it's held in such high praise. And as the Nate says here, PC Arkham does look better than its console counterparts. And I think it should I remember looking into this when I picked up both an Xbox Series X and a PlayStation 5, that Rocksteady and WB has never gone back to Arkham Knight either to do anything either with frame rate or with graphic passes and improvements. So.
Although I think Arkham Knight looked pretty good on console. I haven't played the Xbox version, but I know on PlayStation I thought that it felt good. And yeah, I get that Arkham looks better on PC, but I just want to point out, like, what I'm saying is literally the Steam Deck version, right? Not the PC version. The Steam Deck version looks better at first blush to me than my Series X version did. But again, that was mostly out of lighting, not necessarily textures. And then Spider-Man games catch a lot of smoke. Yeah.
Game Logic, you got a Call of Duty update for us?
Yeah, so real quick, not a ton of gameplay, although Tao will probably get me to unwind some more things that I wasn't planning on getting into. Just my own personal update is so obviously spent a lot of time with this, spent a lot of time before I went out on spring break, then spent a lot of time when I came back because I didn't have cycles to get into something else. Then there was a double XP weekend. So with 30 days left to go, I think in season 3, and I do think they've done. We're now at the point where they've done season 3 reloaded, so we're beyond halfway through the season. I have finished the battle pass, and I have hit prestige 7, level 20. So there's the potential that I could knock out prestige master this year. Maybe, maybe not. I think it's also helped that I haven't like gone crazy, like trying to unlock every single weapon unlockable. And I'm actually just like playing with like a relatively small subset of dedicated weapons, which I think has helped right in my, in-game performance and probably led to like fewer matches where I'm just like getting clocked just because I insist on like, um, getting bear mauled because I'm trying to level pistols or something crazy ridiculous like that on some like ridiculously long map where you shouldn't be playing pistols at all. But yeah, I am having a good time with it. I've noticed, I think in season 3 reloaded, I think they have brought back Hacienda, which was not one of my favorite maps when that showed up, but they have actually come to be okay with it. I think it helps that they're not putting it on modes where I think it doesn't make sense. There's one other map that came back, I thought, in season 3 reloaded that I can't recall now off the top of my head, but yeah, I'm continuing to have a pretty good time with it.
Nice. Well, Tao, let's talk about No Man's Sky. And in particular, let's talk about Pokemon No Man's Sky. Have you had a chance to let's just say poke around at it?
Yes, very nice. Yeah, so I dived pretty deep this past week into the Pokemon, or the Xeno battles, as they're calling it, Xeno Arena battles in No Man's Sky. Yeah, I actually beat. So you kind of go through this little, story when, obviously when the update came out, kind of introducing you to it. And you do a couple battles here and there. You can do battles on any space station. Usually has, I think, at least two different battles you can do. Two different people you go against, or just AI, I should say. And also on planets in the outposts, you can find just one so far that I've seen, person to battle or alien to battle. But then after you kind of get past that initial kind of just introduction part, you start to get invitations, kind of like Pokemon, from different people to battle, and then eventually you'll go to a champion for that system or galaxy that you happen to be in. So I actually beat my first champion so far, and then I like warped to another planet or another star system. I was just starting just kind of messing around with those battles, and I just got the floor wiped with me. I don't know if it was just like a bad system that I went to, that they just happened to be like higher level, trainers or whatever you want to call them. I don't even know what they're called here, or what happened. But yeah, I was just getting killed. So I kind of warped a couple more times, and then I kind of hit like a normal, or just like more my level that I was at. So I don't know. So the initial planet I went to said it was a Xeno world, so I'm assuming that's probably like a higher end, battle. The people have higher end, higher level. So it was just kind of weird, and I didn't notice that until later when I was kind of just looking around the planets in that system, that I noticed that the one actually said Xeno world for a description, instead of saying like cold or hot, or whatever, correct planet or something. It's some weird descriptions they have now on planets, but it actually said Xeno world, so I'm assuming those are just higher levels, and I should probably avoid those from now on. But it seems like the space stations seem to be fairly easy ish. I did have some problems here and there, but I have that Pokemon mentality, so I have to relearn like a whole new system now, on the strengths and weaknesses for each of these. Obviously, like fire, ice beats fire, but then there's like radioactive. There's nuclear, I forgot, I think it's called something else, but desert, and it just comes some other different names now that they have for some stuff. So, and some of them don't quite beat what you think would beat, another class. So I have to, jump on my phone and look at the the stats and stuff and see who beats what now. So it's like a whole new system I have to go through. But yeah, I'm having a good time.
Turn-based battles then, in like a Pokemon style, or are they more kind of actiony?
No, yeah, it's turn based. You do like it's like a hologram battle for the creatures that you capture, or the companions that you befriend. So it's not actual, animal, fighting, or aliens fighting each other. It's like a hologram, like table, almost like the Star Wars, like that little chess game or whatever it was. Yeah, so it's that, but it's just yeah, it's just turn based though for right now. And as far as I know, it's only like 1-on-1. I don't know if they're ever going to do. I don't know if there's ever doubles or or 3 people against 3, but I've only seen single battles so far. But yeah, it's I'm having a good time with it and just kind of leveling it up. And I still have, I think, one type that I haven't even found yet. I think that, which is the desert one. So I'm trying to fly around and at least get one of those. I'm trying to get at least like kind of 2. And they did up the companions that you can carry around with you now. I think it was only like maybe like 9 or so. I think it's doubled now. So you get like 18 or 16 or 18. So there's a lot more you can carry around with you. So I want to try to get at least a couple, and just start leveling them up. But yeah, having a good time with that.
So is this PvE and PvP, or like how is that? I mean, going back to our Soulframe conversation, right? Like how is that? Yeah. But where do you match up with others, and where are you running into kind of PvE aspects?
Yeah, so on the space stations and on the planet outpost, it's only PvE, and then when you go into the not the Atlas, the Nexus, I think is that one space station you can actually call up anytime you want, where it's kind of like a multiplayer hub. When you go in there, that's where you can do the PvP. I haven't done any of those battles yet. Now, I'm not sure if I will, because I'm sure it's been like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks since this update's been, out. So I'm sure, I don't know how that, if there's any kind of matchmaking there, if they just throw you, whoever's happens to be there, is there, and they match you up like that. But maybe I'll try maybe a battle or 2 or something just to see how it is. But yeah, you have to go into that Nexus space station that you can call up to do the PvP.
Nice. And playing other things within No Man's Sky, because it continues to be just a never-ending expanse. But mainly, you're just doing the Pokemon battles, or the
pretty much I'm
battles.
Yeah, I'm starting to do with the Corvette class ships that you can actually make. There's a mission module that you can create on your ship. I'm starting to look through those a little bit more because you can get the frigate. It's like a frigate for your freighter. The frigate modules that actually helps you upgrade your big ship, your big freighter. So I'm starting to look for those a little bit more. They seem to pop up a lot more actually than in the past. So I'm trying to farm those too because I want to update the warp drive on my freighter so I can go to some of the other type of star systems, because you have to have like certain drives to go to like a purple, or I think purple is the newest one where they have like the big gas giants or the big ocean worlds. So I want to do that. I could do it on the regular ship too, but I like using the freighter because it's kind of like a mobile base. So it's kind of nice to have that around. And the other thing is too, whenever a freighter is in the same star system as you can call down, or at least with the modules I have right now, I can call down any of my ships or any of my ground vehicles, or like the mech, which is one of the main ones I like to call down to kind of travel the world. So it's kind of nice. And then yep, I was going to go into my other games just real quick.
Yeah, give me one more, and then we'll call it for time.
All right, so I jump actually. Besides Vampire Crawlers, I've been playing that off and on, but I jumped back into Marvel Rivals this past week. There's a couple of new characters, the Black Cat and White Fox, which I wasn't familiar with White Fox. I guess she came around in the comics around 2014, I think I just saw when I was looking her up right now. So I wasn't really familiar with her. White Fox is a healer in this game, a strategist, and then Black Cat's a DPS. So I haven't played either of those two yet, but I was kind of going back and playing some of the other new ones that I haven't really played too much or at all yet. Like Angela, they added her, and she's a Vanguard, so she's a tank. I kind of like her. She's actually pretty nice. And then also I was trying out Daredevil. He's actually pretty good, but he's a DPS, but he's really easy to kill. Like he doesn't have a lot of health at all. He's kind of more of what they call a dive character, so you kind of just jump in and gotta jump out. And I was just trying to wrap my head around his, because usually I don't play a lot of DPS too much. Mostly tanks and healers most of the time, but I'm trying to just play a little bit more of the DPS characters. Other than, I think Moon Knight's probably one of the other ones I played a lot of in my time with Marvel Rivals. But yeah, I'm trying to get back into that now.
Nice. I can see Daredevil as a dive in, dive out, right? Like that lore's, in universe specific, that kind of makes sense as someone who without any real superpowers except for physical abilities. Yeah.
And his visual is kind of cool too, because obviously he's blind, if you don't know, in the comics and TV shows and movies and stuff. But he like kind of right in front of you is almost like normal, like you're looking through like a normal character, but then kind of further out it's all like mostly black, but you can kind of see the outlines of everybody, which makes sense because he kind of has that kind of radar ability, obviously since he can't actually see. So it's kind of cool how they did that character.
That's neat. All right, gentlemen, that will pretty much do it for our show. Real Innate and Soldier for Life, thanks for being here. Glad to have you as always. Anybody else who came through or is joining us online afterward and finding this podcast or the video, and we appreciate you being here and listening to us wax on and wax off. But let's before we call it, let's look at what's coming out next week, or technically this week, since we are already on Tuesday, May 7th. One of the games that I had on my radar that I didn't put on here is a rhythm fighting game, Dead at Disco. It's been early access. Another early access game that's coming out on May 7th is Alabaster Dawn, which is action RPG and kind of a 16-bit by the developers of CrossCode. And kind of the big one for this release across all platforms for this week is Mixtape, which comes out on May 7th. Gentlemen, anything else that's up on your radar for this coming week?
I was looking beforehand. I didn't really see like too much. Is Mixtape, is that the one from the Life is Strange people, or is it in that vein, or am I thinking of something else?
It's in that vein, or at least it has presented itself as in that vein. I don't remember what the pedigree of the development studio. Game Logic looked like you were typing up there. Did you get a result?
Yeah, the development team is Beethoven and the Dinosaur. It's an Annapurna game. It's by Beethoven and the Dinosaur, which did a music-oriented game called The Artful Escape.
Oh yeah, yep.
Pretty popular. Well received. Not widespread, but yeah. So there's been buzz around this, and like you said, Tao, and like its similarity to
Bloom and Rage Lost Records. Like, this is the one that came out during a summer showcase and had the full-on 80s movie trailer to it with the voiceover, and very much a high school coming-of-age story, at least is what it appears, with a little bit of maybe magic or some other type of something woven in there. So I'm very curious about this. It's been on my radar for quite a while, just in terms of thematically, it hits that kind of sweet spot of coming of age stories that could be really, narratively could be really enjoyable. Game Logic, you started the podcast with your mute on, and now you get to end the podcast with your mute on.
Heavy 80s lean, heavy soundtrack lean, which
yes, very heavy soundtrack. Yep.
Some good music, at least, maybe, hopefully. If it's, like known music, if it's not just original.
No, it's licensed 80s music, and
nice.
it fits that, like, yes, this could have been it's invoking the John Hughes vibes of mid early 80s.
And big skateboarding motif. Tao, so it might be in your interest area.
All right, gentlemen. Any other final thoughts before we call it for the night? This has been episode 433 for our off schedule one on Tuesday, May 5th. Again, as we said at the top of the show, we will not be recording on Sunday the 10th due to Mother's Day in the United States. And so we'll be back to our regular scheduled Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on Sunday, May 17th. So, thanks for being here. We're always glad to have you, Tao Master. Appreciate your commitment to your Miis. I hope they still make it through in our 1 week off. We'll check in to look for signs of life.
None have died yet, so there's that.
Okay. They got to get married and have more kids, and then get divorced and have all kinds of good me interactions. So, Game Logic, thanks again for running everything, keeping us steady and streaming as we go through. I've been your host, DBQ Hams, and so until the next time we meet, play the games you love those you play with, and be kind to yourself. Good night, everybody.